What if I told you that the moment you start becoming too strong, too clear, too confident, too free, is the moment a narcissist decides it's time to destroy you? See, they don't strike when you're weak. They wait until you rise, until your light threatens to outshine the illusion they've built around themselves. And then, they use one final trick, the most deceptive, manipulative, emotionally twisted tactic in their arsenal. A move so subtle, you might not even see it coming, until it's already working. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And that's exactly what the narcissist does. They avoid their shadow by casting it onto you. If you've ever felt blindsided by someone who once cheered you on only to sabotage you when you got too bright, this video is for you. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn here won't just help you identify narcissistic manipulation. It'll show you how to break free from it permanently. We're going deep into the hidden war behind flattery, the weaponized guilt, the false victimhood, and the transformation that comes when you finally reclaim your power. There's a silent shift that happens the moment you stop playing small. You start setting boundaries. You speak with clarity. You walk into a room with presence, not arrogance, but presence. And that's when a narcissist takes notice. To them, strength isn't inspiring, it's threatening. It's a mirror that reflects back everything they're not. The more grounded you become, the more unsteady they feel. Your growth destabilizes their illusion of superiority. At first, they may act impressed. Look at you, doing so well. But there's tension behind that smile. Narcissists crave control, and strength is uncontrollable. When someone who used to depend on them suddenly stands tall, they panic. You've broken the script, they don't know their lines anymore. And in their world, unpredictability is the ultimate danger. So, they try to recast you, back into the role where they are the star. You might notice the compliments turning sharper. "Wow, you're so confident now," maybe too confident. They'll downplay your wins, twist your words, suggest you're changing, not for the better. This isn't random, it's strategic. They sense you slipping from their grip, and their ego can't handle irrelevance. So they do what they do best: manipulate. But here's the twist. Your strength isn't just making them uncomfortable. It's waking up their shadow. And that's where Carl Jung's insights come in. He believed the traits we repress most, our weaknesses, fears, envy, don't disappear. They hide in our unconscious. And when a narcissist sees your strength, it stirs something buried deep inside them. Not admiration, not inspiration, but shame. Which brings us to the real battlefield, not outside, but within. Carl Jung taught us that every person has a shadow, the hidden part of ourselves we reject or deny. It's not just made of darkness, but of all the traits we refuse to acknowledge. Now imagine someone who's built their identity around being perfect, admired, untouchable. That's the narcissist. To them, even admitting weakness feels like death. So, when they see strength in someone else, it cracks their armor. This shadow doesn't emerge quietly. It lashes out, like a frightened animal. Cornered, unpredictable, dangerous. Instead of facing their inadequacy, the narcissist projects it onto you. Suddenly, you're arrogant, selfish, ungrateful. They distort reality to protect their ego. Your progress shines a spotlight on the parts of them they've buried so deep, they forgot they were even there. Here's where it gets even more twisted. They might actually believe their own story. That's the danger of the shadow unchecked. Jung warned that what we don't make conscious will rule us from the dark. So the narcissist, convinced you've wronged them, now sees you as a threat that must be neutralized. Not with open conflict, but covert sabotage. They'll whisper doubts, plant confusion, poke at your insecurities, all while claiming they're just trying to help. But let me tell you something important. When someone fights that hard to bring you down, it means you've already risen higher than they expected. You're not just triggering their shadow, you're awakening it. And in that process, you hold the mirror. But be warned, the closer they get to losing control, the more cunning their tactics become, especially when they pretend to cheer for you. It often starts with praise, lavish, over the top, even a bit theatrical. "I always knew you'd go far," they say, eyes just a little too wide. At first, it feels nice, you want to believe it. But if you listen closely, there's something off behind the applause. Narcissists are master illusionists. When direct control fails, they shift tactics. They pretend to support your growth, but that support comes with conditions. Their compliments come with invisible strings, a silent contract. If I support you, you owe me. They might offer advice you didn't ask for, or act overly invested in your choices, but fail to repay that support with obedience, and suddenly, you're distant, ungrateful, too proud. What looked like encouragement was just another leash, one they fully expect you to wear. It was never about lifting you up. It was about staying above you. They also plant seeds of doubt, framed as concern. Are you sure you're ready for that big step? You've changed, I just hope it's in a good way. These aren't questions, they're psychological traps. If you hesitate, they win. Your pause becomes proof that you still need them. That's their hidden goal, to make you question your own confidence. They want you close but just a little broken. The truth is, they'd rather see you stuck with them than thriving without them. That's the nature of ego-driven support. It looks warm, but it's cold manipulation. And once you stop falling for it, the shift is immediate. The mask starts to slip, because when flattery fails, they reach for something deeper. They reach for your guilt. Not every attack feels like an attack. Sometimes, it sounds like concern. I'm just worried about you. Don't let success go to your head. But behind those gentle words is a strategy, an emotional sleight of hand. Narcissists rarely strike openly. They remove one brick at a time until your confidence collapses under quiet sabotage. They play the role of the supportive friend, while reframing your wins as accidents or arrogance. You were lucky that time. Must be nice to have it easy. Or worse, they cut you down in public, then call it honesty. The goal is simple: shrink your accomplishments until you feel small enough to manage. They don't destroy your success, they try to own it. You start explaining things that don't need explaining. Apologizing for your confidence. Editing your words just to keep them comfortable. It works, for a while. Until you realize you're walking on eggshells with someone who claims to admire you. This is how sabotage hides inside affection. It doesn't scream, it whispers. But here's the truth. They admire you. Yes, but in competition. And when they feel like they're losing the game, they reach for their dirtiest weapon. They stop trying to match your strength, and start trying to guilt you into shrinking. They know that once they can make you feel like the villain, they've got one last chance to reel you back in. And that's when the guilt trap begins to close. Guilt is a powerful tool, especially in the hands of someone who knows where your heart lives. Narcissists study you. They learn your empathy, your values, your need to be fair. Then, they flip those virtues against you. You say no? They act wounded. You set a boundary? Suddenly, you're selfish. It's not a conversation, it's a performance meant to make you feel responsible for their pain. They shift the emotional burden. When they mess up, somehow, you end up apologizing. If you hadn't pushed so hard, I wouldn't have reacted like that. It's not accountability, it's psychological judo. They use your emotional momentum against you. And over time, you begin to wonder, was I too harsh? Did I overreact? That self-doubt? That's the trap snapping shut. Your guilt becomes the leash. Every time you try to walk forward, they yank it with reminders. After everything I've done for you, I guess you don't care anymore. It's not love, it's leverage. They don't have to cage you. You'll do it yourself, out of guilt. And that's exactly what they're counting on. But here's the twist. Guilt only works on the innocent. And once you realize your compassion is being weaponized, the illusion starts to crack. The shame they throw at you? It's not yours to carry. Their wounds are not your responsibility to bandage. And when guilt no longer works, they panic. So they escalate again. This time, using something even darker: projection. One of the narcissist's favorite tricks is to accuse you of exactly what they're doing. It's like looking into a broken mirror. What you see isn't you. It's their distorted reflection. Carl Jung called this projection. When we reject a part of ourselves, we unconsciously assign it to others. Narcissists have mastered it. If they feel insecure, you're too competitive. If they lie, you're not honest anymore. It's disorienting because it hits out of nowhere. One moment you're having a calm talk, and the next, you're defending yourself against absurd accusations. That confusion? It's part of the plan. While you're busy explaining, they regain control. They dump their shame at your feet, and wait for you to pick it up. And too often, you do. Because you're a good person. You care, you reflect, you internalize. That's where the real danger lies. The more you care, the easier it is to carry burdens that aren't yours. You begin to ask, what if they're right? That doubt becomes the doorway to manipulation. They plant lies, but you water them, just to keep the peace. All because they can't face their own darkness. So they make you wear it like it's your own. But something shifts when you finally recognize the pattern. You stop absorbing their projections. You stop reacting and start observing. And when that happens, they lose their grip. But don't think they'll stop there. If projection fails, they'll reach for their next strategy: isolation. When guilt and projection stop working, narcissists shift to something more covert: isolation. But they won't push you away directly. They'll make it seem like they're protecting you. That friend isn't good for you. Your family doesn't understand you like I do. It sounds caring, but it's calculated. They plant doubts about the people around you. They said something about you behind your back. She doesn't really support your success. Soon, you start pulling away from the very people who uplift you. Not because they failed you, but because the narcissist poisoned the connection. They wedge you apart, bit by bit, until you're emotionally alone. That's when you're easiest to control. They also create distractions, small crises, sudden drama, emotional chaos. You cancel plans. You avoid texts. You feel too exhausted to reach out. They drain your energy to keep you dependent. And in your isolation, their voice becomes the only one you hear. No contrast, no truth, just their narrative on repeat. That's how they win, by making their version of reality the only version that exists. But even isolation can backfire, because silence amplifies intuition. You begin to notice the pattern: how every time you get close to someone else they find a way to sabotage it. And that realization brings clarity, which leads to the moment they fear the most, when you stop playing the role and start seeing the play. This is the narcissist's final move, the grand performance. When you stop bending, they stop pretending. And suddenly, they become the victim. You didn't reject control, you hurt them. You didn't set boundaries, you turned cold. It's emotional blackmail disguised as heartbreak. And it's designed to flip the story in their favor. They cry to friends, twist facts, create drama where there was none. I just don't know what I did wrong. To outsiders, it looks sincere. But to you, it's the same old pattern in a new costume. The goal is simple: win sympathy, discredit you, and pull you back in through guilt and confusion. Because nothing cuts deeper than being cast as the villain in a story you never wrote. This tactic also isolates you further. People begin to question you. Maybe you were too harsh. They seem so broken. Are you sure you handled it well? Suddenly, you're defending yourself to people who weren't there. That's the point. Shift public opinion so you start doubting your own clarity. It's not truth, it's strategy. But here's the paradox: the moment they play the victim is the moment they admit defeat. It means they can no longer control you directly. So they perform instead, because that's all they have left. And if you stay grounded, if you stay clear, you'll see it for what it is: the final act before the curtain falls. But to walk away for good, you'll need to recognize the cycle and break it. Breaking free from a narcissist isn't just about walking away. It's about waking up, because even after the distance is there, the residue remains. You replay conversations, doubt your instincts. You feel guilt, anger, grief, all tangled like a knot in your chest. That's not failure, that's healing. And healing always begins with clarity. Narcissists operate in cycles: manipulation, guilt, reconciliation, repeat. The moment you stop reacting the way they expect is the moment their game unravels. But to stop reacting, you must first recognize the pattern. Were they always sorry, but never changing? Did every moment of joy come with a subtle jab? Were you constantly explaining yourself to someone who never listened? That's not love, that's control. The hardest part? Letting go of the fantasy, the hope that they'll change, the belief that if you do everything right, they'll finally see your worth. That fantasy is seductive, but it's the very thing that keeps you stuck. Freedom begins the moment you trade that illusion for truth. And yes, grief comes with it, but so does peace. And peace is worth everything. Because here's the truth: they were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing control over you. Your clarity threatens their illusion. And when you step outside the cycle, you step into something greater. A version of you they can't reach anymore. But to stay there, you'll need more than distance, you'll need true psychological strength. True strength doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. And that's the kind of strength Carl Jung spoke of. The kind that comes from within. When you face your shadow, own your story, and stop outsourcing your self-worth, you become unbreakable. Not invincible but untouchable where it matters most. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's the key to psychological immunity. Awareness. You begin to spot the manipulation before it lands. You hear projection, but don't absorb it. You feel guilt rising, and ask, is this even mine? This is emotional maturity, and it starts with radical self-honesty. And that honesty? It's humbling. You'll see the parts of you that kept the door open. The people-pleasing, the fear of rejection, the longing for someone to finally get you. But instead of shaming those parts, you'll integrate them. That's how you build a foundation no narcissist can shake. Because they thrive on the fractures you refuse to heal. And here's the twist. The narcissist didn't break you. They exposed what was already asking to be healed. You don't have to forgive them, you don't have to go back. But you do owe it to yourself to stay awake. To build a life where manipulation no longer feels familiar. Because when you become unbreakable, the game ends. And everything begins again. On your terms. By now, you've probably recognized at least one of the tactics we've explored today. Maybe more. And if you have, that's not a sign of weakness, it's proof of awareness. You're not who you were when they started playing these games. You've grown, you've seen behind the curtain. And now you get to choose something different. See? Narcissists don't fear losing you. They fear losing their ability to control the narrative. And once you step out of their story, their power crumbles. But that's just the beginning. Now it's your turn to write the story. To build boundaries that don't bend, confidence that doesn't shrink, and a life that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. So I'll leave you with this. What if the pain you went through wasn't a setback but a setup? A setup for deeper strength, sharper vision, and a self that no longer needs to explain or apologize? What will you build, now that you've stopped shrinking to make others comfortable? That's a question only you can answer. But if this video brought clarity to your journey, share it. Because someone out there is still caught in the game you just escaped. And if you want more tools like this, more insight, more clarity, more power, then subscribe, tap the bell, and join us. This isn't just a video, it's a map out of the maze. And we'll be right here, waiting to walk the next step with you.